So now we've got all those sources, right? We have people who have no proximity to Tupac with the people who were blog who's just giving their perspective. We have celebrities who really don't have any type of proximity or closeness other than they're in the same industry. And then we have actually people who knew them, right? People who at least knew Tupac, right? People who knew Tupac and can vouch and can give you a little bit of a deeper insight as to what he said. Now let's listen to Jada Pinkett. Now I listened to this, right? I listened to the Audible that is Worthy, which is her new book. I was just reading about it. They said it flopped. I think it's a beautifully written. I think it's amazingly relevant. And I think that it's explanatory. I think you're going to learn a whole lot of things and you're going to learn how to do some things. It's not just a book about her memoirs, it's a book about helping yourself and what steps to take to be your best self. So for that reason, I have to give it an A plus. So she deals with, I'm gonna, paraphrase and go from what I remember. She deals with how she met Pac, going to Baltimore School of the Arts the first day. She's late for orientation and she sees this group of people. And in the smack dab in the middle is this scrawny peanut head dude. That's how she described Pac. And she said, our eyes locked. And then he broke away from the crowd and came over and said, "Hey, hi, my name is Tupac. And what's your name?" He said, "Hi, I'm Jada. Hi, Pac." And, they were inseparable since then. And you've seen it. You guys have seen the interview where she said Pac wasn't necessarily the type of guy she would deal with from his aesthetic or from his looks, but he was super duper magnetic. He had a magnetic that was strong. This is what she said, and I quote, I wrote it down. She said, "Pure, unadulterated connection. Excuse me, pure, unadulterated charisma that was out of this world." That was Tupac in the 10th grade when she met him. So he always had that star power. He always had a self belief, which makes sense because he was reared up to be that way. He was reared up to be relentless in mind and spirit, regardless of the circumstance. She said she went on to say our immediate connection, I felt, rose beyond the basics. We were kindred spirits in so many ways. Although Pac may have had an attraction to me in the beginning, the more time we spent together, the more we could both see that there was no romantic chemistry between us at all. Yeah, I thought that was cool because, at a point in the book, she was like, "Look, Pac, let's just kiss and see how this works." And she said it was like the most ridiculous thing. It was like two siblings trying to kiss. There was no chemistry there. Uh, but it was good that it wasn't though, right? Because, she talks about the meaning, what that means or what it meant. Um, she went on to say this. This is what he meant to her, or this is what he taught her. Their deep soul tie and their deep soul connection. It was possible to really love a guy deeply without it having anything to do with sexual attraction. That's something that in this era where I know Steve Harvey said men and women can't be friends, and then you have to consider you have to consider who the author of that is, right? You have to consider where he's coming from as a wealthy man with resources that may be tempting to those people trying to slide in under the guise of friend, but really looking to be enemy. Then you had Kevin Samuels, and I understand their stages of development. I understand their perspectives. However, it does exist, and it can exist. It can exist. I think that when we look into it deeply, many times it's connected to trauma, which is what it was connected to with Pac and Jada, right? Because they came up, no doubt, in traumatic environments, and their whole childhood, their Bildungsroman, their childhood evolution was steeped in trauma. And so I think I know that was a bonding factor to them because we bond over trauma. There are people that that you've had traumatic experiences with or identical to theirs, and that makes you all brothers and sisters, right? Pac made Pac made up for the lack of male protection and care that I sought in my life. You're gonna find out that Jada's dad, both of her parents were addicts, but her father was, he was out of the photo, as a lot of black men were. He was addicted to drugs, and it took toll on Jada. It made her, it caused her to have to mature prematurely. It caused her to prematurely have to grow up, but it stifled her emotional maturity when it comes to the male relationships and what she saw, right? Plainly put, city girls have daddy issues. A lot of these city girls that we are noticing, the F you pay me, the you can't tell me nothing, the I need a baller, all of that is steeped in issues with daddy a lot of times. Not all the time, but a lot of times it is. So yeah, she said Pac made up for the lack of male protection and care that I saw in my life. And that's huge because a young girl is normally protected by her father. And here it is, she doesn't have that protection. And who steps up? And he has a sister himself, right? Tupac. And another thing, the similarity between them, the trauma that they identify with, brothers and sisters, is both their parents were addicts. Both of their parents were addicts. Their mother, Pac's mother, Afeni, and Jada's mother, Adrian, they were both addicts. The only difference was Afeni was a Panther. So the government, the mainstream of society, had marked them, had ostracized, had banished them to a degree. When they identified and labeled them Shakur, you got Asada Shakur, who's in Cuba right now, Joanne Chesimard. You have Geronimo Jaga, who is Geronimo Pratt, who is Pac's godfather. You have Mutulu Shakur, who just passed recently, who had just got out of jail. These names rung out in the 70s in the revolutionary circles. So if you were affiliated, and then plus Afeni was on trial. She got herself out of jail. That was a famous trial that she was on. So they were well aware of who she was. So then there were no structures, or she didn't enter into any structures that she could provide for herself. That's why financial literacy, that's why our unity is so important, brothers and sisters, because you're going to pay for fighting for your people. You are going to pay. And so you need to build something up.